Hi all, welcome back to our channel Code for Tech Solutions. Today in this video we are going to cover a very interesting topic. So we are going to cover everything about Git. So what is Git, what are the key features of Git, and what is the workflow of Git request. All these points we are going to cover in this video. So even if you are new to Git and you have not worked much on Git, that is not a problem because we are going to cover everything about Git from scratch, so that you will have at least basic and you will come to know the basic and fundamental knowledge of the Git with which you can get started with. So the first question comes in our mind naturally. So what is a Git? So Git is a distributed version control system. So before we go ahead, we need to know the meaning of the distributed. So distributed means something that is spread out across multiple points and which is not centralized as a single unit. Okay, so this is the general definition of a distributed. So in terms of a Git or version control contests, what is the meaning of the distributed? So distributed means the code repositories that are spread out across multiple repositories without being centrally controlled. Now let's say this is a repository. Now this repository can be this is the repository. Now the next question comes, like, what is the repository? So repository is a place where we can store our project files and keep our history records related to the code changes of to our projects. So this repository can be of two types. It can be either local or remote. So what is the local? Local means we can create a project folder on our local, and we will do all the changes and modifications to the local code. That code is not yet pushed or uploaded on the remote repository. So that is the local repository which is on our system. Now what is the remote repositories? Like remote repositories like which are hosted on the platforms like GitHub, GitLab, or Bitbucket, or AWS code commits. These are the Git repository hosting platforms. So we can choose any platform as a remote repository wherein we can place our repository code as such. Now, so this is about the type of repository like local and remote. Now next thing, like, we are going to maintain the versioning. Like there is a branching system available in the Git with which we can create as a branch within which we can implement some functionalities for that specific version, and some features we implement and push our code with that implemented feature, and we can create a version for that. We can tag it as a version 1. Ideally the version should be 1.0.0 kind of in that series, and it will next time whenever we create next version, it will be kind of 1.0.1 and 1.0.2. likewise it will keep on incrementing. Now this is about how we can create the number of versions and Git repositories. Like as our code grows or at time, so we need to implement more and more functions to be integrated within the code repositories. So that time we need to create the number of versions. Now let's say, for example, initially we have implemented one feature, and we have created version 1 for the repository. Now our repository has only one feature, which is a feature 1. Now next time we want to add one more feature to the existing repository. What we can do, we will check out our code or take the existing code, and we will on top of that we will write or implement our new feature, which is like feature 2. Now we have two features, one feature from the existing code, and next second feature we have implemented on top of the existing code. Now all these two features we have pushed, and we made that version as a second. Now the second version has two features. Similar way we can add one more feature for the version 3. Likewise we can keep on adding features as our code grows at times. Okay, so this is like how we can make use of the versioning system which is available in Git. we can make use of. Let's say by mistake in third version we have added feature 3, but which is not complete as expected. So at that time we can revert back to the version 2. Like we can take the particular, we can take a checkout of a particular branch which is matching to version 2, and we can build that version and deploy that version, so that we will revert back to the version 2. So, and whenever in future we will complete the feature 3, that time we will build for version 3 and deploy our respective code, so that we will have all these 3 features. So we can switch to any version or any branch as we like or as we want, and we can see the code differences as well related to features, and snapshot of all the code changes as such. So this is about how our versioning and Git repositories are distributed, and how we can make use of versioning, branching, and what are the remote repositories like local and remote we have seen. Now next thing, like we can see what are the key features of a Git. Now, as we have seen, it is a distributed version control system. It keeps a track of code changes to the files and maintain history of all the code changes along with date and time. So whenever there are multiple resources committing their changes to the repository, so it is expected that we should keep a track of all the code changes along with the timestamp and the user details who has made the changes, and the exact change, what change he or she has made. All these points we need to record, and that is what Git repository is doing for us. Next thing, like collaboration, like it will allow multiple resources or teams to work on the big project. Like let's say in big project there are multiple resources are working in parallel. So that time, let's say we want to implement 10 features, and 10 different resources are working independently on 10 features. Now they will be committing their code simultaneously or at different time, but in all the cases it should work, and there should not be any overlap in between the resources or the team as such. So that care has been taken with Git repository. Like any resource can commit his or her change, and once he has pushed the change, next time any new resource want to add his own changes, he will take the he will use the pull request, so that he will take the latest code from the repository, and on top of that he will add his own code. Likewise, the process will get followed by multiple resources and teams as such, so that they will work in a parallel without like overlapping on each other. Next thing, like branching and merging, as we have seen, we can take advantages of branching and merging. Like let's say there are cases like if you want to implement brand new feature, or if you want to work on bug fixes or kind, so we can create a new branch for that specific purpose, and we can modify the code changes for that implementation of the feature or bug fixing, and that limited code we can place in a single branch, and we can push our code to branch, and we can merge that branch to the main branch. And the repository, Git repository, will take all those branches records, and what all features each branch has implemented along with the code differences, timestamp, and the user details. All these things will get maintained, and with this branching feature, we can, if we want to revert back any change, we can simply like revert back that change in that branch, and our code will be stable as such. In case it is not, any feature is not working or kind, we can do that like experiment as such. So this is about all the key features that Git provides. Next thing, like we can see what is the workflow of the Git. Now Git request travels through multiple stages. Like first we need to create one folder. Now that folder will not be considered a Git managed project, because we need to initialize it. So for that we can use git init command. So once we execute this command, the folder will be treated as a git managed project, and it will create one hidden folder with name like .git, which will keep a track of, like which will maintain the metadata, which it will keep a track of metadata configuration and all the history, commit histories and configuration file, all these details it will keep a track of in this .git folder, which is a hidden folder. Next thing, like there is a working directory, like we are creating our project folder within which we are modifying our all the code changes. We can create new files and we can modify the existing files, and this is our local project directory wherein we have our modified code as well as existing code as such. Now next thing, like we can use git add. So why we need to do this? Now whatever new files or existing modified files we have at this stage on our local folder, that we need to add. Now add to staging area. Now staging area is a temporary area wherein we can keep our code changes and file changes, or the snapshot of our code, which will get later merged to the main branch or kind. Now with this command git add, we can add all the new files or modified changes to the staging area, which is a temporary area. It will hold all the changes which user had made. Now next thing, like we can use git commit. Now what is the git commit? Like git commit takes a snapshot of local changes and commit to the local repository. And git commit, we can use it to save the changes to our local git repository, as well as like it will create a snapshot of our project at a specific point of time, along with the messages or the comment related to the code changes. All these things it will contain the git commit. Now next thing, what is git push? This is the final command we can use so that our code which is there in our local repository, that will get pushed to the remote repository. And here is our remote repository, and with this command git push, our code will finally reach to the remote repository. This is the whole process we need to follow as a workflow of a git. Now what if, now let's say if you have created a new feature and implemented that, and you have pushed that to the git repository, remote repository. Now if you want to work on the next new feature, because till the time you have committed the feature, and after that or before that there are other resources are working in parallel, they might have pushed their code to the remote repository as well. Now you do not need to miss that code changes. So what you can do, whenever you are working on the next new feature, that time first thing you need to do, like you need to pull the request, so that you will have a latest code which is there on the remote. And once you have pulled that code, you can use like various command like git clone and git pull, so that you will have the latest code on your folder. And there are multiple branching as well. Let's say if you want to get the code of a specific branch, you can use git checkout and mention the branch name, and you will have only that branch specific code on your local system. Okay, so you can use these various commands on basis of what is your need and what is your requirement. But usually you can use git clone and git pull, so that you will have a latest code on your system, local system. Now once that is done, next thing, let's say the code is there on your local folder, project folder. Now you need to do, you need to follow the same cycle as such, like you need to create new files or modify the existing code, and again you need to use the git add to add your code changes to the staging area. And next you can use the git commit with proper comment related to the code changes, and finally you can push your code to the git remote repository. Okay, so this is the whole process you need to follow, and this is everything about git. There is nothing new in git. The whole process, like there are although there are other commands as well, like you can use git log to check the logs, git status to see the status, like it will show all the modified changes in that, and there are other merging related commands as well. So but in and all, like this is about overall git, how git functions and what are the key features and what is the workflow of git. We have seen that. So thank you so much for watching this. So I will request you to please subscribe this channel. Thank you so much.